Hello everyone, good morning and a very warm welcome to our Festive Payroll Tips webinar for Sage 50 Payroll. My name's Duncan, I'm your host and presenter for the session today, which should take approximately 30 to 45 minutes. Now, before we get underway, it wouldn't be a Festive special webinar without our Festive webinar challenge. So throughout the presentation today, the challenge to you is to count the elves. Now, this one on the current slide doesn't count. This is just to show you what an elf looks like, if you didn't already know. But from this point onwards, you'll see a few of these cheeky little chaps pop up in the presentation. And the idea here is you count them up and we see how many you got to at the end. So just a bit of fun to get you into that festive spirit. Okay, so let's now have a look at what we're going to cover in the webinar. So we've pulled together some popular topics at this time of year. So we're going to start with taking on seasonal staff. So some hints and tips on new starters, especially those that aren't going to be working for very long. We're then going to take a look at advance pay, which is something you might consider if you pay your staff weekly and they'll either be on holiday or you're closed over the Christmas period. We're then going to take a look at bonus payments. So this time of year is a popular time to pay a Christmas bonus, for example. And I'm going to show you two different ways that bonus payments can be set up. We'll show you how to add festive messages to your payslips by using the payslips comment feature. And finally, for those of you that have a holiday scheme in Sage Payroll that runs January to December, we'll look at the steps to advance your holiday year. So let's get straight on to our first topic, and this is all around taking on seasonal staff. Now, the key takeaway here is that you don't treat seasonal staff any differently really to regular staff that you're taking on. So when they come to work for you, you'll need to create an employee record for them. To do that, you will either need a P45 from their previous employer, or you need to get them to fill in the starter checklist, which you can download from the gov.uk website. So particularly with temporary staff, they may not have the P45 from a previous employer, and it's that starter checklist that will help you get the correct tax code and starting statement for them. There's also a troubleshooter on the gov.uk website that I've linked to on the handout, which explains more about what tax codes to use and what starter declaration to choose for any new starter, whether that's seasonal or throughout the year. The other point just to mention is that under automatic enrolment rules, your employee may be eligible to be auto-enrolled into a pension scheme. However, if they're temporary staff, you do have a choice as an employer to postpone their automatic enrolment for a period of up to 3 months from the date they became eligible. So that's something to consider. You can manage postponement using our pensions module, if you record the details that way, or you can postpone them manually and send them one of the pension regulators' template letters. So a quick demo on this area just to show you a few hints and tips. So if I just bring the slides down, I'm going to create a new record for an employee that I've just taken on. They didn't have a P45, so what I've done is I visited the gov.uk website and I found the starter checklist for PAYE. And if you scroll down on this page, the employee can fill it in online and either print or email a copy, or perhaps a bit easier, if you're seeing them in person, there's a PDF of the starter checklist. And this will help you to gather all the information you need. So the full names, national insurance number, address, and the employee statement. And it's this statement that will determine what tax code they go on to. So it could be they have another job and they tick statement C, in which case they would go on to tax code BR. Or maybe this is their only job, but they have had another job since the start of the tax year. So they would read all of these questions, they would select the correct statement. They would also let you know if they're repaying a student loan and what type of loan that is. And then they can sign and date the declaration. So really handy form to have, especially if you don't have a P45. So you will need to get them to choose that starter statement, and then you would use that response in order to set them up. So when it comes to creating a record for a seasonal worker, it's no different to any other new employee. But to give you a quick tip, if you have an existing employee record that you want to use as a template for your new starter, so copy in the same pay elements, pay frequency, and some of the settings behind the scenes. If you were to select an existing employee first, so I'm going to select Frank from my list, and then go to the employee tasks. If you then create the new record, either via the employee wizard, you'll see there is an option to create an employee based on an existing employee. So we can choose that option and it will replicate some of the main settings from that existing record. Or if you do it the other way, the quick employee option, if you've got someone highlighted, it'll just ask you if you want to base that new employee on the existing record. So by clicking yes, it's going to save you a little bit of time to assign some of the pay elements, as you can see here, to put them on the pay frequency, etc. So it'd be a case of entering the employee's details. If they did have a valid P45, you'd enter the P45 details here, but if not, choose the option for P46 and choose the relevant starting declaration. So if they already have another job, this is a second job, it would be statement C. You can see that automatically puts them on a BR tax code. So I'm not going to go through the full process of creating the record. I just wanted to share those little tips with you. When it comes to auto enrollment, if you choose to postpone them, you can do that via the pension assessment if you use our pensions module. So just use the postpone option at the top. Or if you're doing it manually, don't forget to send them a letter letting them know that they have been postponed. So that is our first festive topic, seasonal staff, and a few useful links you'll find there on the handout. Now, next up, we're going to talk about advance pay. So this is an option that you have in Sage 50 Payroll. It's used usually with weekly paid employees, and it allows you to put through more than one period's pay on the same pay slip by advancing future periods and using the allowances for tax and national insurance for the dates you're paying in advance. So just to be clear, this is where you're paying an employee early with money that would have been paid in a future pay period. So the example we're going to use today is that we're closing the business for a week over Christmas, and we want to pay our weekly paid staff for 2 weeks instead of just the one. So the current week and then the week that we are closed. So we're going to show you how to do this in the demo, but I want to be clear under what circumstance you should not use advance pay. So I've got 4 reasons not to use advance pay. And the first one is if you're making an early payment, but it's in the same pay period. So classic example over Christmas is if my monthly pay date is the 25th of the month. Obviously the 25th of December is Christmas Day, it's a bank holiday. And often businesses will decide to pay their staff a little earlier than usual at Christmas. But the latest guidance from HMRC is to report your regular pay date, so in this case the 25th, on your FPS, as this will protect your employees' entitlement to any universal credit that they might be claiming. So if it's an early payment in the same pay period, treat it as if it's been paid on the regular pay date. But if it's money for a future pay period, so we're giving them 2 weeks instead of 1, that is when you might use advance pay. Now, statutory payments cannot be advanced. So if you have an employee on long-term sick, maternity leave, etc., you're best off doing that as separate pay periods. So you could give them multiple pay slips, and then you could pay them all of that money early on the earlier pay date if you want to. If you have a pension provider that requires a contribution file for every tax period, you should not use advance pay. Instead, process separate periods. So run through the full payroll process, do it again for the week you're doing in advance, and then again, issue the separate pay slips, but you can pay the lump sum if you want to. And if you have a salary sacrifice pension, do the calculation in the advance period. Again, you should avoid advance pay. So with that said, I want to show you how it works. So let's just jump back to the demo. So for this particular demo, I'm going to focus on my weekly paid employees. So let's just bring those in view. So I've got 5 of them all together. The next pay date in this demo will be Friday, the 22nd of December. And on that pay date, we also want to give them pay in advance for the following week that would have been paid on the 29th. But we're closed and we've decided to advance that payment. So there are two ways you can set this up. So I'll show you the first way, which is on an individual basis. So you would go into the Enter Payments screen, and you'll see the payments for the current period. So this employee works a 40-hour week, and this is her hourly rate. And if I want to advance that payment for the next week, I can just click Advance Pay here at the bottom. I can enter the number of periods I'm advancing. So it's just one extra week in this case. And then we can enter the payment that we want to make in advance. So I've just put in the regular basic pay, 40 hours at the hourly rate. If applicable, you can also enter values for advanced deductions, attachments, or loans, like so. And once you're happy with those payments, you would click OK. You'll see in the summary at the bottom, we've got one advance period. And if we click the summary tab, we can see it's separated the calculation. So it does the current period's values and the advance period. And it means that the allowances for tax, national insurance, etc., pension, is all done based on the number of weeks they're actually being paid for. So total net pay is approximately double what they would get on a usual week. So that's how it can be done from within the Enter Payment screen, and you could repeat those steps for all employees being paid in advance. But there's a quicker way of doing it, and what you can do is you can set up your pay elements to be automatically advanced, and then you can set the advance period using the Global Changes option. And that way you won't have to type in the hours and rate values for the advance period. It will automatically put those values in for you. So I just want to show you the pay element setting that I'm referring to here. If I go to Company, and then from the list of tasks, I'm going to click Pay Elements. So it's only my basic pay that I want to advance. So I'm just going to edit that payment. And you'll see here towards the bottom, I've already got the box ticked to Auto Advance Basic Pay. And what this means is if I make a selection of employees, so I'm going to select these three. Now I haven't selected Jacqueline because she is on maternity leave, which we can't advance. So we'll come back to Jacqueline separately. But for these three, we're going to set up the advance pay via Global Changes. So go into the Tasks menu at the top, coming down to Global Changes, then to Advance Pay, and Advance Pay for end periods. So it is just the 1 week we're paying in advance, and then we can base the pay either on the employee's current hours and rates entered in Enter Payments, or their default hours and rates entered in their employee record. So I'm going to go with defaults. I'll click OK and yes to proceed. So we've got these three employees marked to receive advance pay. And if I then go into the Enter Payment screen, you can see that that has now been set up for them. We've got the one advance period, and just like before, it's spreading the calculation over the right number of weeks. So we've got that for these three employees where we've set up advance pay. Now, the exception in this particular payroll is the lady on maternity leave. So if I just go into the Enter Payment screen for that employee, they're not currently getting any basic pay. They're just receiving the statutory maternity pay. They're on the standard rate here. And if I try to advance a period, you'll see that I've got nowhere that I can record maternity pay. So it's not a standard payment, it's a statutory payment. If we've got one period in advance, you can see it has not advanced the SMP. So it's worked out a tax refund based on nothing, and that's really not the way we want to go. So for this one, we'll set the advance period back to 0, and we would need to process 2 weeks separately. So they'll end up with two pay slips showing the amount of pay for each week, and then I can just give them both of those payments at the same time. So a quick look at the pay slips for the ones that have advanced pay. So I'm just going to use a standard laser pay slip for this demo. And if we take a look, it will show you the current period's values broken down by pay element, but advance pay just shows as a lump sum. It's got all the deductions that have been calculated over that full period, and obviously the year-to-date values and the net pay. And that's the same for the rest of my employees, with the exception of the lady on maternity leave. So she is just getting her maternity pay for this week. We're going to do a separate pay slip for next week. So once you complete your payroll, so we've run your pre-update reports, I'm going to update the records, taking you back up in the usual way. You'll see that the last updated date for the employees with advance pay has changed to the 29th. So that's the pay date that they've been paid in advance for. Now, current status is also reading holiday. And then the one where we're doing separate pay periods, her last updated date is the 22nd of December. So we'll send our full payment submission. And this will contain an indicator to say that it is in relation to both of the periods. So that has also been submitted. And then for the one employee that we're doing separate pay runs for, we would set our next pay date. Check you're happy with the weekly payment. So in this case, it is just the maternity pay, the net pay value. We can then print the pay slips and reports, and then we would update records. So if you are doing separate periods for any reason, you can just choose to do that anyway. Don't forget to do separate full payment submissions at the end of each pay run. So that's our weeklies all up to date, and we have, for most of them, processed some advance pay. So that's all we're going to cover on advancing pay. We are going to move swiftly on to our next topic. So this is where we're going to talk bonus payments. So at the end of the year tends to be a popular time for bonuses to be paid out to employees. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways to set up the bonus payment in your payroll. So one is just as a standard payment. The other one does a net to gross calculation. So could be useful if there's a specific amount you want your employee to receive. So these are the two options I've just mentioned. Standard payment, where you enter the gross amount of pay, tax and national insurance is deducted as normal. Or you can create net payments in Sage, where you enter a net amount and then a top-up payment is calculated. So the cost of the net payment is calculated and included in the gross pay. So the end result being that the employee's net pay increases by the amount specified. So let's bring this to life again with a demo. And I'm actually going to switch to my monthly paid employees for the rest of the demos. So let's start by creating some pay elements. You can set these up if you go to the company tasks here on the left-hand side, and then you click into pay elements. Now, standard payments are created on the payments tab. Just waiting for that to pop up. Here it is. Payments tab is your standard payments, pre-tax, pre-NI. So I've got basic overtime and commission. And you can see there's also a net payments tab where we can create our net payments. So we'll do a standard payment first. I'm going to call this Festive Bonus. And I'll just put a gross in brackets just to remind me which one is which. We've set it as variable, so we can enter the hours and rate. It's subject to tax and NI. May not be pensionable, depends on how your pension scheme works. But bonuses are included in qualifying earnings. And then for minimum wage purposes, it's not an hourly payment, so we'll take that tick out. So there's a festive bonus, just a standard payment, a gross payment where tax and NI will be deducted. The other one is the net payment. So let's create one of these as well. So festive bonus net, I'm going to call this one. Again, we're going to leave it variable so we can type the amount in. But then there's a setting to adjust the payment either for the employee's tax or for the employee's tax and national insurance. Now, it is worth noting that you can only adjust for tax or national insurance or both, or tax and tax and NI. You can't adjust for pension. So I'm not going to make this a pensionable payment, but if your scheme uses qualifying earnings for pensionable pay, there will still be a pension deduction made from the net payment. So it won't have the exact effect of increasing the net pay by the amount entered. But in my case, because my pension scheme doesn't use qualifying earnings, it just uses pensionable pay, and I haven't marked this as pensionable, you should see the desired effect. So anyway, we've got two payments set up. We've got a gross and a net payment. Let's go ahead and assign this to our employees. So I'll show you both ways of doing this. We'll start by just setting our pay date. So for our monthly paid employees, they're paid on the 25th of each month. They're going to get their pay a bit early in December, but to stick to HMRC's guidance, we're going to process it as if it was paid on the regular pay date. So 25th of December is what I'm using as the process date. And then if I go into the enter payment screen, just for this first employee, let's add on the standard festive bonus. So they're getting their usual salary. Let's give them £500 of bonus pay. And you'll see when the net pay increases, it doesn't increase by £500 because tax and national insurance has been calculated and deducted from this amount. So that's just a standard payment, and that's how it would work. Now, just to show you the difference between that and the net payment, let's assign the net payment as well. And notice it says net and net in the tax and the NI column. I'll just zero out these values and we'll put the same information in our net festive bonus. So current net pay, £22.55.36. Let's put our £500 in. That's got up to £27.55.36. So it has indeed increased the net pay by £500. And the way that it's done that is it's worked out the cost of net payments. So we're paying them an additional £235.45 gross, so that they end up with £500 net pay. So this festive bonus is actually costing us £735.45 plus the employer's NI, whatever we have to pay on that. So that's your difference between gross and net payments. A quick tip, if you do want to assign pay elements globally, you can use the global changes option. So if I went to tasks, global changes, and then payments, you can add a payment. So I can add any of the payments that I've set up, depending on how I want to process that. I'll just show you the payslip as well for this particular employee, the one with the net payment. So if I zoom in slightly for you there, you can see festive bonus net, £500, cost of net payments, £235.45. So that's £500 more than what Mr. Bell normally gets. And that is how it has been grossed up. So yeah, that's your bonus payments, either standard or net. And you can find out more about setting these up from our help center. Right, so I have two more festive themed topics for you. Next one is festive payslip messages. So this is a nice touch at the end of the year, just to leave a message of appreciation to your employees on their payslip. All of our standard payslip layouts now include a payslip comment field. So it's just a case of entering the message that you want them to see in the employee records or using global changes, and then it will appear on the printed copy or even on the online copy if they're using online payslips. So I'm going to show you how to set this up using global changes. So we're going to add the same message to everyone. It's going to be of a festive theme, of course. And I'll also show you how to remove that message in time for your January pay runs. So I'll do this with my monthly paid employees because I've already done the weeklies, and I'll start by selecting them all. I've got them all highlighted just there. To add the message globally, go to tasks, global changes, then go to electronic documents. So it's a bit misleading because the payslip comments is also on printed payslips. And then from electronic documents, set your payslip comments. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste a message into that box, which I'd like to appear on the payslips. I'll click OK, and then I'll click Yes to proceed. So that has now been added to each of those employees. And if you look in the employee record and go on the analysis tab, this is where you can enter it individually if you want to. So this is the payslip comment that will appear on the payslips. You can see it's been added to all of the selected employees. And then when I come to produce the payslips, and again, I'll just show you this standard one for now. You'll see that the message appears somewhere on there. This one's right at the top, or there might be a separate payslip comment field. So there's a nice little message for the December payslips. But when we get to January, obviously we'll want to remove that. And it is just as simple as it was to put it on. It's tasks, global changes, electronic documents, and then clear payslip comments. So they have now been cleared. So no longer there, ready for our next pay run. And if you do online payslips, show you one here. Here's one I uploaded earlier. You get the payslip comment at the bottom, just in this section here, and also in the PDF that they can download. So also available online. So that's your festive messages on payslips. And it brings us on to our final topic. Hope you're keeping up with all of these elves, and this is to advance your holiday year. So this step won't apply to all of you. If you don't record holidays in Sage Payroll, this isn't relevant to you. And if your holiday year doesn't run January to December, this is relevant, but you wouldn't be doing it just yet. So when it comes to the end of your holiday year, there's a specific process that I'd recommend that you follow. And that would be to print your holiday reports for the current holiday year and just make sure that you have recorded all the holiday information for that year. Step 2 is to check your holiday settings, because some schemes allow you to bring forward unused holiday. There's a setting that determines that. And step 3, take a backup, just so that if anything goes wrong, you've got a point to restore back to. And then step 4, advance the year. So let me run you through that process in our last demo. And we will start by running some holiday reports. So let's bring all of our employees back. So I've got them all in the holiday scheme. I'm going to click on the reports icon here at the top. And to find any holiday information, just navigate to the absence folder on the left-hand side and look for any report that contains the word holiday. So quite a useful one, I find, is holiday year summary report. And if I just preview that for you on screen, you'll see for my current holiday year, which started on the 1st of January 2023, I've got all these employees in the holiday scheme. This is the number of days in the scheme. Some of them brought forward some holiday last year, so I gave them slightly more entitlement. And we can see the number of days taken, the number of days to take. So quite a few of them are taking the week off over Christmas, and the number of days booked. So as it stands, all of these employees will have used their full 25 days by the end of the year, but I do have 3 employees with days to take that are not already booked. So I just want to make sure that is correct. And if we allow that holiday to be brought forward, there's a setting in the holiday scheme that will allow you to do that. So you'd maybe print or export a copy of this report just for your own records. And if you're sure that all the holiday information has been entered, your next step is to check your holiday scheme settings. So I'm going to the company tasks, and then I will click onto holidays. I just have the one scheme for this demo. So let's click edit. So employees get 25 days per year, but down here in the settings, I am going to allow entitlement brought forward from a previous year. So we've decided if you haven't used all of your holiday, you can carry forward the days you haven't used, and that will be added onto next year's entitlement. Now, if your scheme doesn't allow that, you would need to make sure that you have cleared this box, and also cleared the box to allow entitlement advanced from the next year, because that allows people to take holiday early, which isn't that common. So we're allowing it, but check how your scheme works. Make sure you've got the right setting in place just here. You would then take a backup. So shouldn't need to show you how to do this, but I will anyway. From the file menu, go to the backup option, run through the backup wizard. And then if something goes wrong when you advance a holiday year, if you accidentally do it too many times or anything like that, you've got an easy way to restore back and do it again. So I'll just save this on my desktop and I'll call it holiday year advanced. And we can now move our holiday year forward by 1 year. So 2 places you can do this. If you go to the company tasks, you can click onto settings. You can then click onto the absence tab. You can see my holiday year is currently 1st of January 2023. Actually, I'll move the absence year in line with that. And then you can click the advance year button against holiday year, and also absence year if you report on other absences, and that will advance it from here. Alternatively, you can go to tasks and click on advance holiday year. It takes you through a wizard, so it confirms the current absence and holiday year. You've got your ticks in the box to advance. If I click finish, the process is then complete. And looking back at the absence, you can see it's moved these years forward. Now, what it has also done for some of our employees is if I look at the holiday entitlement, it's brought forward the days unused. So this employee has 5 days brought forward. That can be manually amended if required for anyone that does have brought forward holiday. So you can overtype or delete that figure. And if I just go back in and run that same report as before, the holiday year report, holiday year summary, what we then have is our holiday year starting in 2024, and it confirms days entitlement for this year. So 3 of them had days brought forward, got nothing recorded as taken or booked. So all of this is remaining to be taken. So that was it for advancing your holiday year. Print the reports, check your settings, take a backup, and then get it advanced. And that was our last seasonal topic for today's webinar. So what we're going to do for the rest of the time is we'll run through some further support. If you have any questions on anything you've seen here today, do feel free to submit that in the Q&A, and I will have a look at those once we've been through the further support. So if you think of something after you've left the webinar, a great place to visit to get an answer is our help center. So that is available at sage.co.uk/help from any browser, any device. Just follow the links to Sage 50 Payroll. From there, you can search our knowledge base, read our support guides, and there is a link to webinars at the top of the screen. And we have a nominal link session coming up later this month if you're interested in signing up for that one. You'll also find contact options for our support team should you need any further support from them. As well as that, we have Sage University at sageu.com. It's completely free as a Sage member for you to access that and to complete our e-learning courses. You can also do the official certification for Sage 50 Payroll, and you can complete our bite-sized learning on various topics in the world of Sage 50. So that's all available at sageu.com. You can create your profile and go from there. So Festive webinar challenge. I wonder if anyone has got this one right. So if you want to tell me how many elves you counted, you could always drop a number in the Q&A and submit that through. So we saw these little chaps popping up at various points in the presentation, but how many did you count altogether? So no answers through so far. We've got 14, 17. So good guesses, you're close. No one's got it spot on just yet. This one doesn't count either, by the way, this last one. 19. I've got another 14. Well, I'm going to tell you that nobody got it right. Either that or I got it wrong. There's a good chance I got it wrong as well. Should be 15. So you don't count this guy, don't count the one at the start. We reckon there were 15 elves, but I'm ready to be corrected. Cheryl's got it right, so at least someone agrees with me. But that's your little festive webinar challenge. So hopefully that's brought a little bit of fun to the session today. Okay, so we do have some time. We've got about 5 minutes. So if you do have any questions on what I've covered today, do feel free to ask me in the Q&A. So same place you've just been submitting the elves. Don't forget to download your handouts. You can count the elves on there as well. If you want to play that game again, it's available from the documents icon on the control panel on the right. And I'll just stick around for a few more minutes. And if we do have questions, I will answer those for you. So if you've finished and you're ready to leave, thank you so much for joining us at our Festive Webinar Tips webinar, our Payroll Tips webinar. I hope you enjoyed the session, and do look out for a follow-up email, which will be sent you in about an hour's time. So that will contain a link to the recording of the session and some other useful links. We are repeating this session again in a couple of weeks' time. So if you want to come to that one, do get yourself signed up. And we're doing nominal link this Friday. So another webinar available for you in December. Okay, so we have had a question. So do I have any tips on bonuses paid separately but on the same pay period? So bonuses paid on the 21st of December, for example, with main salary paid on the 31st. So if you're dealing with what's usually a monthly pay frequency, doing a separate payment outside of the usual pay run would involve sort of processing the original bonus, producing a pay slip and paying the net pay that was calculated, but then rolling back the period, processing the bonus and the salary, and then deducting the net pay that was already received. So it can get a bit messy. So you'd produce a pay slip dated the 21st. You just put the bonus payment through. It'll deduct tax and national insurance. It will use the allowances for that month. Make a note of what that net pay is. And then once you've submitted it, you'll need to roll back, add on the salary, deduct what's already been paid, and then do an FPS adjustment. So it can get a little bit messy. I guess another approach you could do is you could put through the full pay just on the usual pay date, and then calculate the difference between that pay with and without the bonus, and then maybe pay them the bonus amount early, but treat that almost like a loan. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought anyway. Gemma's asking, does advance pay work for companies who have factory shutdown and want to pay their staff in advance for that shutdown? Absolutely, it's one of the main scenarios that it is designed for. What I would say is there are some reasons why you wouldn't do advance pay. So just to remind you what they are on the slide, statutory payments can't be paid in advance, so you would do that as separate pay periods. Pension providers that need a contribution file for separate tax periods, and salary sacrifice pensions. But if none of that applies to you and you want to put all the payments on the same pay slip, yes, you can use advance pay. You can pay them for the current week, the week that the factory's closed, or weeks if it's more than one, and get that all put on a single pay slip. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's kind of a perfect example of when you would use it. Great, well, thanks for sending those questions in. As we are nearly out of time, I'm going to start to wrap things up. So I just want to say once again, thank you for joining us at the webinar today. Thanks for your time this morning. If you could take a minute to complete any survey that appears as you leave the webinar, we'd really appreciate any feedback that you have. It does help us to improve these sessions going forward. Look out for your follow-up email arriving later this afternoon, which will contain links to register for future webinars, and also I'll have a recording of this session attached. Just going back to one of the questions, so Gemma, you followed up with, when I say same pay period, do I mean the same tax month? Yeah, so in the example where I was talking about the bonuses and the main salary, that was an example of a monthly paid employee that was getting 2 payments in the month, which is quite unusual. If it's for the advance pay for companies that have a factory shutdown, if you're paying them early, just process it as if it was paid on your usual pay date. But if you normally pay weekly and you're giving them more than 1 week at the same time, that's when you would use advance pay. So when I'm referring to pay period, it depends on the pay frequency. But I hope that makes sense, Gemma. Right. We're pretty much out of time for this one. So if you do have further questions, you feel free to get in touch with me direct or check out our help center. We're going to wrap things up there though. So enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great festive period, whatever you're doing for it. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you at some of our other webinars again in the future. So goodbye for now.